laptop?
No, I joined on my phone. My laptop has crashed.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay.
So hi, what do you need, Barbara?
Not really need. It's the Becca's topic master wanted her to help in sharing the screen, but apparently Becca's laptop isn't on for now, and now I think he might just have to do the presentation orally, or maybe get an alternative, which is try to. What is the alternative? I don't know.
My computer is telling me that he's sharing the screen.
Yeah, I
No?
can see that someone is trying to share their screen and I don't even know who it is. Let me check.
That is me trying to share the screen now using a different device. Guya.
Well, that's Goya. And Susan is here too. You could send them the presentation to Susan. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Doc.
Yeah, Guya is saying he's not able to share the presentation. Okay. Maybe he is. I don't know.
I think he has managed.
All right.
Becca, we are on top of the hour, so maybe you can begin.
Let's get started.
Is it okay if I continue?
My laptop told me that Becca has left the meeting. I think she dropped off. So yeah, I think Becca dropped off. So
Sorry, I'm back. I don't know what happened.
Okay, go ahead. Let's get started.
Okay, I think he's ready, so we shall get started. So welcome everybody once again for our second cohort, session 8 of our Learn to Earn class. It is always wonderful to see everybody here. Your continuous engagement to learning is always an inspiration and will surely drive us forward. So today's session promises to bring both an insightful and an impactful conversation. We will be having our presentation by Mr. Guya, who will take us through this topic, which is measuring the impact of quadratic funding supported tree planting initiatives. This topic is for most of us who actually have a vested interest in our environment. It is a topic that is close to our hearts as it delves into tangible benefits and long-term effects of the initiatives we all support, which we have also been unpacking throughout this cohort too. So as many know, quadratic funding is a powerful mechanism for democratizing funding allocation, ensuring that projects with broad community support receive the necessary resources. So in terms of tree planting, it supports tree planting through quadratic funding, which not only enhances our environment, but also fosters community engagement and resilience. So Mr. Guya will guide us through this topic about the methodologies and metrics that is used to measure these impacts, helping us understand more how to collectively give out efforts that will translate into real world benefits. So after that, we shall be having insights by our CEO, Dr. Macharia, in which she will be delving us deeper into this topic and providing helpful commentaries as well. Later, we shall be having in between there, we shall be having an interactive session in which you can be able to ask questions where you don't understand and for clarification or anything that has been on your mind related to the topic as well. So after that, we shall be having summit announcements to relay progress on our upcoming summit, which you can also be asking questions about that as well. So after that, I will share the link to our attendance form, as this is a learn to earn program. So without further delay, Mr. Guya, welcome and take us through today's topic.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. For those waking up, maybe good morning. Our today's this is week 6. We are talking about measuring the impact of quadratic funding supported tree planting projects. The topic is metrics and methods for evaluating the success and impact of quadratic funding funded environmental projects. So we go straight into the introduction, where we are talking about the success and impact of environmental projects funded through quadratic funding that involves a combination of quantitative and qualitative metrics. For quadratic funding is a novel funding mechanism that emphasizes on community preferences and contributions, aiming to match funds in a way that small contributions from many people are weighted more heavily than larger contributions from a few people. In the conclusion into the introduction is to comprehensively assess the success and impact of such projects, we consider the following metrics and methods. One is qualitative metrics, and we also have the quantitative metrics. So under the qualitative metrics, we are going to talk about stakeholder feedback, awareness and education, and behavioral change. Under stakeholder feedback, we have community satisfaction, where we have the surveys and interviews to gauge satisfaction among community members. Then we have beneficiary feedback from such kind of qualitative metrics, where we have the direct feedback from those who benefit from the projects. Then we also have the expert reviews, which is the evaluation by environmental experts on the project's impact and implementation. And we also have under qualitative metrics, we have awareness and education, which is a public awareness, which is the measure, we measure the increase in public awareness regarding environmental issues addressed by the project. Then we also have under awareness is, we say awareness and education, which we can also say sensitization in other words, which is the number of educational sessions, workshops, and or materials distributed. Lastly, under qualitative metrics, we have the behavioral change, which is the adoption of sustainable practices. We monitor changes in community behavioral towards more sustainable practices. Then there's also the long-term engagement, which is we measure the long-term engagement and continued support from the community. We'll move straight to quantitative metrics, where we shall also discuss about the financial, environmental impact, project performance, and community engagement, as we can see from the diagrams that are on the slide. So under environmental impact metrics, there's the reduction in carbon emission, which is we measure the decrease in greenhouse gas emissions as a result of the project. We also put in place including carbon emission tax. Let us say, for example, how are we supposed to reduce carbon emission? Let us say, for example, if someone, or maybe let us say the policy formulators will come up with a bill that will actually bring about carbon emission tax. For example, if there is an industry that is emitting carbon into the environment, what are some of the measures that are supposed to be put in place to make sure that we regulate the carbon emission? So some of the regulations are maybe including tax to reduce the carbon emission. So when we tax these companies on carbon emissions, so let us say, for example, they're going to reduce the amount of carbon they're going to produce into the environment. Then under that, you also have to have biodiversity improvement, which is the track changes in species, population, and diversity. There is also air quality improvement, where we are going to measure changes in air pollutant concentrations. We also have waste reduction, quantify the reduction in waste generated and increased in recycling rates. So how we are going to recycle some of our waste products is also going to determine the environmental impact matrix. Then lastly, under that, we are going to have energy efficiency, where we track energy savings achieved through the projects. Then financial metrics is funds that are going, what are the funds that are raised? Total amount of funds raised through quadratic funding. For example, United Nations Environmental Program has raised in 2023, for example, the environment the UNEP fund provided US dollars 89 million, or 15% of UNEP's total income. The income received represented 89% of the approved budget. So the funds raised through these organizations actually help us in financial metrics. Then matching funds, the amount of funds contributed by larger donors or institutions, e.g. the Global Environmental Facility. Then lastly, cost efficiency, which is the ratio of funds spent to environmental benefits that are achieved. Then still under qualitative, we are also having community engagement metrics, which is the number of contributors, total number of individuals who contribute. We also have the average contribution size, which is the average size of contribution from individual donors. Then diversity of contributors, which largely talks about demographics, analysis of the contributors to understand the diversity. Then lastly, we have the project performance metrics. Under that, there's the project completion rate. What is the percentage of projects completed on a time and within the budget? So for example, if you have a project, what is the chances, what are the chances that you are completing these projects? For example, if you are funded, like we talked about, if you are funded by the Global Environmental Facility, now we will ask ourselves, they funded us, yes, but what is the rate of completion? Do they just fund us and we complete the projects? And if we complete the project, what is the rate of completion? Did we complete it within time? Did we complete it within the estimated budget? Then under the same project performance metrics, we also there is also the goal achievement. To what extent does the project meet its stated environmental goals? So for example, like right now, let us say, for example, the Kenyan government is into climate change, and I've been seeing the president maybe planting trees, and to what extent does the project meet the environmental goals? Like from the tree planting ceremonies I've been seeing so far that were being launched by the government, I might put it in quotes, they're giving us holiday to plant trees for environmental impact. I would say most schools that I visited have been planting eucalyptus trees. So what are the environmental impacts of these eucalyptus trees they have been planting? Most of them actually absorb more water from the environment. So which means from planting these eucalyptus trees, let us say, for example, they are not going to meet the goal achievement of the project performance metrics that you're actually looking at when it comes to in terms of environment. They'll plant the eucalyptus trees. They're going to cut them down because they want to use they want to use them as maybe to get timber or something. The same eucalyptus trees, they absorb so much water from the environment, which is actually going to make the lands to be dry on some extent. So I would say, as much as we are planting trees as a nation, we should also consider that we should plant indigenous trees and not just any other tree, especially the eucalyptus trees. Then lastly, under project performance metrics, there is a resource utilization, which is the efficiency in the use of resources, financial, human, and material. So how are we going to utilize these resources? Is there mismanagement of funds? Are the humans being used for the purpose they're supposed to be doing when it comes to project performance metrics? And the materials that we are being given, are they being used for the same purpose? Then as we wind up, we also have the methods for evaluation. So under these methods for evaluation, we have surveys and questionnaires. Under surveys and questionnaires, we collect data from project participants, community members, stakeholders to assess satisfaction and impact. Then we also have environmental monitoring. which we use scientific methods to measure changes in environmental parameters such as air, water quality, biodiversity, and carbon emissions. And the same methods for evaluation, you also have data analysis. How do we analyze the contribution patterns, demographic data, financial data, and assess the effectiveness of the quadratic funding model? Then case studies. We conduct detailed case studies of specific projects to understand their impact, challenges, and success factors. We also have comparative studies where we compare projects funded through quadratic funding with those funded through traditional methods to assess differences in impact and efficiency. Then second last, we also have field observations. We conduct an on-site visit and observations to directly assess the implementation and outcomes of the project. Now, what I've just been talking about from maybe the actions that the Kenyan government is taking, I'm using that specifically because that is what I have been following through. What are some of the things they have been doing? So in terms of planting trees, there's only one thing that still the government needs to come on board and discuss about is that, like the field, when we are going to do the field of observations after some time, what are some of the things that we are going to actually, the outcomes we are going to come up with? For example, when we plant eucalyptus trees, more especially along our streams, along our rivers, you'll see that maybe there will be reduction of water quantity when it comes to rivers and streams, more especially if we continue planting the eucalyptus trees, as opposed to planting indigenous trees. Then lastly, the longitudinal studies. We perform a long-term studies to track the sustained impact of the project over time. Can metric and methods be integrated? So to effectively evaluate the success and impact of quadratic funding funded environmental projects, we need to integrate the qualitative and quantitative methods through a comprehensive evaluation framework. So this is the baseline assessment, which is going to establish baseline environmental conditions and community engagement levels before project implementation. Then regular monitoring and reporting, implement regular monitoring and reporting mechanisms to track progress and make adjustments as needed. Then impact assessment, where we conduct periodic impact assessment to evaluate short-term and long-term outcomes. Then there is the stakeholder involvement, which we also say that they engage stakeholders through the evaluation process to ensure transparency and inclusiveness. And I will say, maybe I'm not a critic of the government, but I will say as much as we are planting trees, I don't think we have a baseline assessment. We don't have a regular monitoring and reporting. Like, let us say, for example, yes, we planted the trees. It might be indigenous, or maybe it might be the eucalyptus we are talking about. But we have also been experiencing floods. So is there an organization or a body or environmental body that is actually doing a regular monitoring that we planted 10 trees here, but after we had this flood, how many do we still have? Is there an impact assessment that the government is actually doing, or other institutions that have been doing these tree planting sessions for the environment? Because I know very well they have been funded to do the same. Maybe the government had been funding institutions, maybe the forest organizations, and maybe the intergovernmental organizations that have been funded, but is there assessment? Because we have been experiencing floods. Maybe some of them were affected by floods. So we need that regular monitoring and reporting of the same projects. Then in conclusion, the success and impact of quadratic funding funded environmental projects can be effectively gauged through a balanced combination of both quantitative and qualitative measures. This comprehensive evaluation ensures that the projects deliver tangible environmental benefits, engage the community effectively, and promote sustainable practices, thereby maximizing the overall positive impact of both the environment and the society. So I might even ask myself, as much as we have been doing these projects, as much as we are being funded, are we ready for the impact of both environment and the society? Yes, we are ready for the impact of the environment and the society. That marks the end of my presentation today. Thank you for listening.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Goya. That was a wonderful presentation. And we commend you for the insights you've provided today. I'm sure most of us have gotten a deeper understanding of the type of metrics that are involved in such an effort. It was well put and well presented. And so now we shall invite Dr. Macharia to also give his insights about the presentation and the topic as well. Welcome, Dr. Macharia.
Thank you, Linda. I'm getting through. Just confirm. Can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Yeah? Oh, great. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Guya. That's amazing. You're teaching us about metrics. Did you know, long time ago, I heard somebody say that you cannot know what you don't measure. Can you believe it? You don't measure something, you don't know it. That measurement is the origin of knowledge. Knowing something is because you measure it. And that applies to everything. We measure ourselves, even our own body weights, our own waist circumference, our dresses, our shoes. What shoe size do you wear? See, that kind of thing. So that you can know what shoes to buy. You cannot just buy shoes, you have to wear shoes size number what. So measurements are developed for that, and the measurements are standardized. It's one thing you want to know. Measurements are standardized. Either they are in a, we have international system, le Système International of Measurements, the SI system, which gives us millimeters, milliliters, meters, kilograms, moles, so the weight and balances and heights and width and all that stuff. So these are called measurements. Did you know measurements are at the base of everything in life? We measure even things with time. You cannot know which day it is if we didn't measure time with a clock on the wall. So measurements have come around to simplify our life. So when you're doing any project, you have to first of all understand what measurements you're going to use. And measurements has got the measurements units. For example, when you're measuring with kilograms or meters, that's grams or meters or mole. Depends on what you have to measure. Okay, whether you're measuring temperatures or in degrees centigrades. And so that's why measurements had to become standardized so that we can develop a language. We are speaking about the same thing. When you say 1 gram, whether you are saying it in Japanese or Russian or English, 1 gram is 1 gram for everybody. 1 kilo is 1 kilo for everybody. That means 1,000 grams. So that's called standardization. That's the beginning of this conversation. So when you're doing a project, like say tree planting, how do you measure? See, how do you measure? How do you measure? And to measure, it means that you have to obtain the thing to measure. That thing that you're going to be measuring is called data. Data is the thing that you measure. And so the science of measurements is what's called metrics. So today we'll be talking about metrics, like measurement science, measurement of a project. So you measure a project in 3 stages. These are important. 1, what you measure is before the project is implemented. Okay, it's called evaluation. You evaluate the project before it's implemented, because you don't know how the project is going to go. How do you measure that? So that is called pre-implementation evaluation. And usually pre-implementation evaluations are done for 2 reasons. 1 is to predict the way the project is going to go. So you can have a roadmap, you get a sense. So you're measuring that pre-implementation evaluation. And then when the project, after you do the pre-implementation evaluation, now you can have data, because that's data you want to create a roadmap. See, a road has got what? Miles or kilometers. So roadmap has got milestones. Remember, milestones are also measurements. So these are measurements you put in place. This is the roadmap for implementing our tree planting project. milestone number 1, milestone number 2, milestone number 3, number 4, number 5, until the end. And those are the implementation progress, the project milestones. Now the milestones helps you to define the goals of the project, because if you 1 mile, for example, in a roadmap, you say, I am going to be between Nairobi and Kericho. Then you're going to pass by Nakuru. If you're, how many miles are there? I don't know, but you're saying, but within 1 hour, I'm going to be in Naivasha if I'm leaving from Nairobi. So Naivasha is the first milestone. So the goal is to get in Naivasha within 1 hour. So you see, when goals are specific, simple, measurable, that you can measure, then the simple, measurable, and time specific. So you say, I'm going to get there within 1 hour. So in the project, after the implementation evaluation gives you the SMART goals of simple, measurable, accessible, and what's their stand for, and then they're time bound, that you can actually see how much time is going to take to achieve that, to reach that mile. Okay, that's goal. So these goals become specific like that. That's what's called implementation itself. During implementation, you want to continue measuring, that you have to measure on a continuous basis. And then finally, after you have finished planting trees, you have the post-implementation evaluation. Okay, that's another step now. That is, after everything is said and done, you're looking back. So imagine the technology that you used, the attention that you paid in pre-implementation evaluation that's looking forward is very different from the technology they use for looking back post-implementation. And it means that indicates the measurement instruments. So how do you measure in the beginning before you implement? How do you measure during? And how do you measure after? So measurements after the implementation, post-implementation evaluations are of 2 stages. There is one stage which is immediate. You could say immediate after, say, planting trees. Maybe about a year, we could call it immediate, 6 months to 1 year. After planting trees, the only thing you can say about those trees is the effect of the trees. You can measure the effects, okay, or the effectiveness. So I just want to make you understand this. So if you start somebody coming to tell you that I'm measuring the impact after 6 months, you tell him that is complete baloney. Okay. Now it's only after maybe 5 years, 3 to 5 years, that you can measure the impact. It's not possible to know the impact of something until 5 years later. Particularly, you see, if you plant blue gums, you know what you're calling eucalyptus trees, it's very difficult to say the effect on water, even within 1 year. Even within 2 years, you cannot tell. Okay, so I just wanted to give you that as a broad idea of how you look at evaluation, the metrics. So again, you're measuring before, pre-implementation, during implementation, and after post-implementation, which has got 2 stages: the effect, which is within 1 year, and the impact, which is after 5 years post-implementation. So you understand those things. I hope you have taken notes, copious notes about these matters, because this material that is going to come along, so you can know when people are giving you stories, you know whether they are telling the truth or they're just beating around the bush. Okay? You can now understand. Now, we introduced something else, quadratic funding. Quadratic funding is about how you're financing all the stages. Now, if you're talking about quadratic funding, pre-implementation evaluation, remember, you're saying, how do you raise money? Because pre-implementation is you have not received the money. Okay? You have not received the money at the pre-implementation stage. how do you go about evaluating that process? See, raising the money and quadratic funding means participation of many people in the communities. In the community, what that means that you have to have a plan that is going to engage hundreds upon hundreds of people to participate, rather than going to one philanthropic organization to donate money. You're now talking about raising money from hundreds of people in tree planting. So the evaluation for that is called pre-implementation evaluation. Involves building your community so that you can reach the people. And of course, when you're building a community in the quadratic funding, because it's on the blockchain, you have to be teaching those people about how to create wallets, how to receive tokens. Before you even plant trees, is talk about the blockchain issues, matters. That's the part of pre-implementation evaluation. I'm going to tell you why it's an evaluation. Because if you don't reach those people, that's called initial community development, then your tree planting quadratic funding is not quadratic because you still would get donation from one person. But the quadratic funding is participation of many people planting trees and getting those trees represented in the blockchain marketplace. So in the pre-implementation stage, that is what is happening. Sensitizing people. Now that's keyword, the word is here, sensitization. We're going to talk about that in how you measure that. What's the approach to sensitization as opposed to, later on coming to check with people? Because you have to sensitize, creating awareness among people so they can know the blockchain, the crypto, how it works. Then they get the receiving tokens, and each token represents one tree. Okay, one token per tree, one token per tree. And where are those trees? I'm talking about tree seedlings, not a tree, not a big tree. The seedlings. So where is that tree? Where are those tree seedlings going to come from? You see, all that is pre-implementation evaluation. Some people call that they call that what, some sort of economic analysis. I don't think it's really it is not that. It's an evaluation process because you're trying to find out what is there, what's available. Are there people to receive those tokens? Can those people receive the tokens? By what means? What do they have? The devices like cell phones? And if the devices, is it a mlikamwizi, or is it a mobile phone, a smartphone, and all that stuff that is the pre-implementation stage. So then people receive the tokens. Then you execute the roadmap. You say, how many trees can you plant in this session? Like, for example, if you're planting in a particular location, during that time, when you're talking in the pre-implementation phase, you have identified also the area where trees are going to be planted and also the kinds of trees to plant. See, now trees there's such a huge variety, but it's always important to plant trees that are indigenous to a location. Because nature is not stupid, let me tell you, nature is very smart. Why nature decided to grow certain trees in certain locations and not certain other trees? Because nature is very clever. Don't introduce trees that don't belong to that place. Plant trees that are indigenous to that location. And you find that trees that are indigenous are very balanced to produce wood. They balance the climate, and they also do what? They produce food, like fruits. A lot of trees produce fruits. And then there's a whole bunch of trees which are medicinal. And all those trees are in every location. So you don't want monotype trees, like one type of trees. That is extremely foolish thing to do, because you don't want a forest of just eucalyptus. If you have a forest of eucalyptus, you're now interfering with nature. Nature, if you go to forests, traditional forests, like indigenous forests, they don't have one type of tree. Yeah, so it's not a good idea to plant one type of tree. And you all know why. For example, if you went to a country and there was only men, that's one species. There is no woman in that whole country. What would happen to that country? And if you go to another country, there's only women, not a single man to be seen. And what can you do about such a country? So nature does not allow such thing like monospecies. It's called monopolar, single polarity. So nature requires plurality. You could say plurality, that you have plural things happening, not one thing. So those are things to consider when you're doing what in your pre-implementation evaluation, that you want to have criteria of what are we doing. Okay, so you have understood that implementation is in what 3 stages, and you are measuring those things along the way as you go. Let's talk about the approach to measurement. As Guy has told us, we have 2 approaches to measurements, only 2 in this world. One approach is called qualitative, the other approach is called quantitative. And those things, I think they are hard-coded that way, qualitative, quantitative. Qualitative means about the quality of the information that you get. Okay, quality. It is you could say subjective information. Subjective is that expressions of people. So how do you get such subjective knowledge? Then on the other hand, you have quantitative. Quantitative is quantities. Quantities is numbers that you're measuring in numbers, kilograms, weights, length, height, and so meters, grams, centimeters, centigrades, stuff like that. So there's numbers. It's qualitative and quantitative. Which one is better than the other? Let no one tell you about such a question. You tell him, cannot answer him such a question because that's totally foolish. Qualitative and quantitative are not mutually exclusive. Each one of them have got its own use. And so somebody says, oh, I think if there's no quantitative numbers, this thing doesn't make sense. You can tell you, if you think it doesn't make sense, you don't understand sense. So some people do not understand sense. That's why they say things do not make sense. Okay, so quantitative and qualitative, they make sense in their own independent way. So they're not mutually exclusive. And it's not that because it's qualitative, it's quantitative. There are things you can know only by qualitative approach that you cannot know by quantitative approach. Because according to Einstein in 1929, he said, not everything that counts can be counted. Not everything that counts can be counted. And not everything that counts, not everything that is counted counts. That's Mr. Einstein. First of all, not everything that counts can be counted. For example, if you plant a tree and it grows and provides good shade, people love it. Kids love to play under that tree. Kids, or even they climb around the tree, they become happy. That happiness that a tree produces cannot be counted. You cannot say, oh, this produces 3 kilograms of happiness among children living in that area. See that? But the happiness of the children counts a lot, but you cannot count it. Then there's some people who are so interested in counting, but the things they're counting, they don't count at all. For human life, they don't matter. Okay, so I don't know, you can think of a whole lot of things that those counting people show to you, and then those things do not matter any which way. What are some of those things that people count a lot all the time, but they don't mean anything because they have no really effect on the people themselves? So, for example, if you say that we need 500 trees, and then you plant only one type of tree, That is like a uniform type of tree, eucalyptus everywhere. You have a huge count of trees, but that thing doesn't count in terms of reducing or producing happiness among people, reducing the impact on the environment. See? So not everything that is counted counts. A lot of things try to say that, oh, we have huge numbers, so to justify their arguments by showing good, nice statistics. And you can tell, you can actually feel, you have a gut feeling, that gut feeling that tells you that this thing is wrong, but because the numbers look so good, and policy and government agencies tend to admit such things just because the numbers look very good. Then later on you find they're actually destructive, destroying people. Okay, so qualitative and quantitative. So qualitative, now how you measure things in qualitative way, the qualitative approach of measurement. The measurement, you need instruments for measurements. And qualitative requires you to come with an open mind, make observations, open observations with people without bias. Come and look at what's going on. And that open observation requires your participation. You have to be there. You yourself, you cannot send people to look for you. You have to be present there so that you can look and see what is going on. And then you can smell the air, the scent of the air, the freshness of the environment. So you now are able to evaluate such things by your senses. That means your eyes are the instruments. Your sense of smell is the instrument. Your sense of hearing, your ears are the ones collecting data for you, gathering data. See, you're not gathering data with any instrument. So we are talking about you gathering data with your 5 senses. Okay, that is what a lot of people did not understand. That the instrument for qualitative data gathering is not it is not a measurement instrument, like you can say, like a kilo, like a weigh machine, or even a ruler, temperature. Or even a thermometer for measuring temperature, or even a ruler for measuring height, length. No. Qualitative measurements, the measurement instrument is your senses. Okay? And your sense of hearing, your sense of sight, your sense of touch, your sense of tastes, your sense of smell. Because if you appear in an environment, say you have planted a whole nice of beautiful trees, it's like jacaranda, after 3 years, they're producing those purple flowers. You cannot measure that purple flowers, that beautiful sight of the jacaranda, Mimosopholia flowers by any other means, but by looking at them, see them, and then you can describe to people what you saw about the beautiful purple flowers. Or even if you have the Nadi flame, also another very glorious plant, even the morning glory, stuff like that. So you do not measure those with, say, like how colorful they are. Say we have 300 kilos of color. Maybe you can actually quantify that, the color intensity. But basically, these are qualitative. They are made by observation. So the observer is the instrument of measuring qualitative evaluation. The observer is the instrument. So the instrument is not a physical object. The instrument is a human being. So, and you see, this is when and of course, people who are students here and they're doing research, you might find some teachers who are misguided. They don't understand this thing very well. They ask you, what is your research instrument? You tell them, the research instrument is me. I am the research instrument. And the research instrument, if you have a professor telling you that you need to go and find a research instrument, say the research instrument is already found and is here standing right in front of you. This research instrument uses 5 sensory organs. to collect data. Number one, the eyes. Number two, the ears. Number three, the nose. Number three, the sense of touch, the fingers. Number four, what sense of smell. Number five, the sense of taste. Supposing, yeah. So that is what you tell such a person who doesn't have, you could say, of limited comprehension about the instrument for collecting qualitative data. See, that's the difference. Quantitative data, on the other hand, you have all these physical instruments. The instrument created for this system, the SI measurement system, the System International of Measurements, the metrics. So the metric system, let's call the metric system because it is used for measurements, metrics, the kilos, grams. We have grams, and you have meters, you have liters, and you want to have the instruments for measuring grams. That's a weighing machine. Instrument for measuring liters. You see this. Those are marked flasks. Instrument for measuring temperatures. And these are thermometers. Instrument for measuring time. That is what clocks. See that? So they're physical instrument for quantitative, and they're what? There's this U as an instrument for qualitative. See? Now, qualitative research is how you gather knowledge about awareness. You're creating awareness of people. You cannot have that awareness using physical measurements, quantitative measurements. You measure that awareness of people qualitatively. See, we talked about creating awareness, and that awareness in the pre-implementation stage. So when I'm talking about these instruments for measuring qualitative, quantitative, those two, quantitative, qualitative, they are at every stage of evaluation. So implementation evaluation, pre-implementation evaluation, you do qualitative, quantitative. You can use both of them. Even in the middle, when you have during implementation, qualitative, quantitative. And even after post-implementation evaluation, you can do qualitative, quantitative, both of them. Even impact evaluation, there's both qualitative, quantitative. Yeah, that's why I said these things are not mutually exclusive. So you have 3 stages. Within those 3 stages, you have both approaches to evaluation, qualitative and quantitative. I just want you to understand that both of them are there in every stage. So don't let any confused person tell you that you can only do quantitative post-evaluation. Yeah, no, it's not true. Fact of the matter is that qualitative is applicable to all the 3 stages, and quantitative is applicable to all the 3 stages. Is that qualitative gives you information that is subjective because you are able to collect data through your observation directly using your senses. Quantitative, you are able to collect data using instruments, physical instruments. Okay? And you need both of them, both measurements, whether in the beginning, the middle, or the end. Okay, that's what I wanted to emphasize so that you can see. And this is going to be because this now, you can see it becomes a very high academic process. It's not really academic, it's about measurements because you cannot know things you don't measure. So measurements now eventually are both quantitative and qualitative, and qualitative and quantitative is applicable to all the 3 stages of evaluation of a program. Now, what you measure, see, we're talking about measuring the money, measuring the kind of trees. So there's so many things to measure in that process. That's why we're saying that this can be a very, very huge lecture for about, you could say, a whole semester talking about these things. And but I think we're having a good opening because eventually we are going to cover these things in great detail because this is where the rubber hits the road. Because when we learn how to measure, we become very, very successful. In fact, if you know how to measure things and how to describe the measurements, then you become very successful in your own life. Why? Because that's all there is. That's with measurements and means of communication. That, for example, just like I told you, you cannot go to buy shoes you choose for yourself if you don't know the size of your feet. See, so that is, you could say, at a very ground level of life measurement. That at that point is when you get paid. If you learn how to measure things, whether in the beginning, the middle, or the end, and knowing that instruments for measurements are very, very specific. Like the way you cannot measure temperature with a weighing machine. For weighing, temperature is not weight. So see that specificity of measurements. But when it comes to qualitative stuff, people get confused there. That how do you measure this? How do you measure the effect here? And so I think those when you're gonna dive deep into details of how you measure that, particularly after the implementation, measuring the effect and the impact, and what you can say about those things, so that we can know that the work that we are doing has got certain positive outcomes, or maybe certain negative outcomes, which unintended side effects, how to measure those things. Well, that's what I wanted just to add about that. So that, thank you, Guya, for introducing us to this very hot topic. I would think that when it comes to now measurement or evaluations, we may have to do a whole foresight on evaluation, so that people actually understand how this works. Okay, because this is like a research class, but you see, this is research in business. Okay, well, back to you. Back to you, Pika, Linda.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for those insights. I would like to invite people for an interactive session. If you have any questions about the topic, we would love to hear it. And you can either write it in the chats or unmute yourself and ask the question as well. As we wait for those questions, I would like to just bring up Augustine for summit announcements as well. So welcome, Augustine.
Thank you so much, Linda, and thank you so much, Guya, and also Doc, for taking us through this session today. I would just love to mention about speakers that, as you know, we have a summit, and we are organizing a summit. And at this particular moment, we are having 86 speakers, both from environmental, medical doctors, blockchain, and even other fields. So as you see, the list is really exhausted. And yes, so I think I just want to remind each and every one of us that let's not, it's okay, let's invite speakers, but let's not spend much time there. Right now, we are in the phase of sponsors and exhibitors. So let's put much pressure on that part of exhibitors and sponsors invitation. But again, that doesn't mean we don't, the window for speakers is closed, no. Let's continue also following up and inviting those who want to join us as speakers. But at this particular month, I think up to August, focusing on inviting organizations for that want to partner with us for sponsorship. So that is it for now, and let's continue working together and yes, to support our posted, both in participating in these sessions and also the summit journey. So thank you so much, and back to you, Victor.
Thank you, Augustine. I'm still not seeing any questions.
Okay, maybe I can add
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, okay.
one thing about, so I can add a thing or two about the summit for all the people here. This is environment science. And what I want to say is that we have people, 86 people already accepted to come and speak to us about their works at the summit. 86 is a lot of people. And these are 86 very important people, because they're doing important work. Everybody here does important work. They're willing to share. And so that's, first of all, remarkable that we have got 86 and they're still coming. So right now, I'm sure when you have 86, now we have about 4 months to go, or even 5. By the time we come to December, there will be more than 100 or something. So it's going to be a very, very busy event with a lot of people. What I want to tell you, that every speaker you find attracts about 10 people, 10 attendees, 10. So if we have 86 speakers registered by now, we would have, if we just go with that metric, again about measurements, we would have 800 people attending the summit. 800 people. That's a very big deal. 800 people in person in KU. It's going to be very, very big. So when you have such a huge number, these are professionals. These are not rager people, the people who can buy products. And so people who make products, people who own companies that make products, they love that. That they're going to be in front of a huge eclectic, I mean, a group of very many diverse people, because it's a highly multidisciplinary event. So you're going to have a very eclectic attendees. And so if you're making any products, you want to show those products to people so that you can sell. That's the whole idea of making products, so you can sell. And we are giving people opportunities to come and showcase their products as exhibitors. And that's what we are talking about. If you know anyone who makes anything, tell them to come. And that's very important for them. In particular, because right now we are talking about environmental health. We're going to have, besides having some presenters on environmental, we're going to have a full workshop on environment. That means the side show environment, and we can talk about environment from planting trees all the way to climate change. Mm-hmm. And people who are in environment, environment has got what? You could say 3 major things. We said 4, there are four things. There's the air we breathe. So we want to have about carbon sequestration mechanism by planting trees. People who are doing all that carbon credit business, they need to come by planting trees. So the tree planters and carbon cycle people. Number 2, environment is water. So we're gonna have water people there. And water also has got multiple components inside it. There's water harvesting, then the water drilling, underground water, and water, which is just water management within water, and the water that you use for cleaning and irrigation, agriculture, and water that you use for sewage, municipal water. So you're gonna have those kind of people coming to talk about water, and it's gonna be a workshop that is environment workshop. And then we have energy. Energy also a big deal, because you cannot get water out of the ground without energy. Neither can you sequester carbon dioxide without energy. So it's about that energy movement also. It's going to be there too. And of course, there's a lot of people today working on energy products, particularly green energy products, including solar. And they would like to come and exhibit their solar, gadgets, let's say solar panels and things like that. And then we have people working on other types of green energy, like biomass energy, and some other experimental and other profound expensive green energies like nuclear energy. So anyone doing green energy, tell them to come in and they can exhibit their products. Yes. Or even come in as sponsors. And then eventually there's the earth, which is also the environment. So the earth includes those people who are working on geographical minerals, and there's a lot of them. People who are doing mining and moving the earth, even moving rocks for building construction. When you find them, let them come and talk to the people. And that is those are people you can talk to and tell them, listen, you come to this summit, it's going to be a lot of people. And if you don't tell them, they shall come back to you, say, you knew about this, you didn't tell us, because the summit is promising to be something fantastic. Because, Becca has worked very hard. She has managed to draw attention of the United Nations. The United Nations Environment Program is going to be there. And of course, that's very, very good for because the UNEP itself is the one that kind of sets the tone for what you're doing in the environment. Other people involved in climate change, even the Green Belt movement, they're going to be around. So think about those guys and people working solar energy. So many people working sustainable energy, sustainable projects will be there. But when you talk to someone who can come in as an exhibitor, as we say, you shall earn the 5% of the exhibition fee. You see, that will come to you, and so you start making money. You make money while you're doing good. Another thing that you benefit from is that you can do is making posters. So make posters to present at the summit. The poster presentations still open. It's going to be a poster competition, and all these ideas we're talking about here, you can make good posters to present. Posters do not require you to stand in a podium, so don't be afraid that you're going to be speaking in front of hundreds of people on a big podium by yourself. So don't be afraid of the stage fright. And the poster presentation, you just create a poster and then you put it on a tripod, and then people can be seeing it as they're walking around. So that is what is that's what it is right now. And we have seen responses from major organizations, as I said, United Nations in this environment program, Green Belt Movement, and we're going to have even other people like World Health Organization. I'm sure Environment Health at WHO is going to show up. So, and this is going to be very, very, very beautiful event. And so you want to be part of it. You want to be there. And then, of course, we are talking about blockchain, cryptocurrency companies to come and talk about how we can use all these cryptos to make the environment better for all of us. Okay, that's what I wanted to add. Just to tell you, to add to the fact that the summit is falling into place very, very well, thanks to the hard work that you all guys are doing. Yeah. Okay. Back to you, Linda.
Thank you, Exemotaria. And I see in the chat room, Damian has presented us with a few creative approaches to engaging businesses in quadratic funding.
Okay.
The first one is corporate tree planting days, where you organize tree planting events where employees from local businesses participate. Businesses can sponsor the event and their staff can actively plant trees, highlight the company's commitment to environmental stewardship. Then there is matching donations, which encourage businesses to match employee donations for tree planting. For every dollar contributed by employees, the company matches it with additional funds. This amplifies the impact of individual contributions. And then there is also green partnerships, where you collaborate with businesses that align with environmental values, create partnerships where a portion of their sales or profit support tree planting. Then there is promoting these partnerships through joint marketing efforts. Then there is tree planting challenges, turn tree planting into friendly competitions among businesses. And he also mentioned tree planting projects initiatives aim to restore forests, combat climate change, and enhance biodiversity. Quadratic funding can be applied to fund tree planting efforts by matching individual donations, encouraging widespread participation. He ends it by asking, I want to ask in quadratic funding apply tree planting projects, we do target both afforestation and reforestation, or either of them. Really understanding the question. I want to ask in quadratic funding application, I guess, is tree planting project, do we target both afforestation and reforestation, or either of them?
Either of them. Afforestation is when you're planting a new forest. Remember, we talked about that in the beginning of the previous. When you had this lady who taught us about afforestation. What was her name? I think she's from Kenya. I think it was Lillian. She taught us what is afforestation. I think that was Lillian. Yeah. Afforestation.
The time we're learning about it was Rebecca, right?
Is it Rebecca? I don't know. Okay, yeah. So afforestation is when you plant trees in a place there was no trees, just a field, open field of grass. Then you come and plant new trees. Afforestation. And reforestation is when you plant trees where there were trees that have been cut down by people doing their things, and then you come and replant trees. So yes, Damian, quadratic funding applies to both of them. Yeah, because quadratic funding is the just funding mechanism for mobilizing people to go out and plant trees. I think what you have shared here is quite insightful, because imagine you had a company, it's like what, say, Kenya Commercial Bank. Okay, maybe a bank is a bad example because an example. Let's talk about a hospital. Say like what, a private hospital. And you say every person working in that hospital plants a tree. Okay. And the hospital itself, say like Nairobi Hospital, although there's nowhere to plant tree for Nairobi. So about a hospital, at a place where they need to plant trees. I think even Nairobi Hospital staff members can get into a bus and go to Machakos and plant trees out there. Okay. And so Nairobi Hospital, every worker who is working at Nairobi Hospital contributes 3,000 shillings in the tree planting effort, and they get Actuate equivalent number of Actuate tokens. And the hospital itself provides matching funds. If you can speak to the hospital to agree to such a deal, or even a place like Aga Khan Hospital, because this we are talking about healthcare, we should mobilize not just hospital, even the pharmaceutical manufacturers. Say all the employees, because some companies have got more than 100 employees, and they would go there, and then the company itself can provide matching funds. That's a great idea, Mr. Damian. I knew you are a genius. Okay, I think it's all that good fish you guys eat over there. Beautiful fish, yeah. So that makes sense. Thank you, Damian, for that. Okay.
He says thank you.
Yeah, isn't that great? Read that. Can't you see that? Because this is precisely what we are going to do. Because, but the companies, they may have to understand crypto, but if they don't want to take crypto, we are fine. The employees can take the crypto themselves. So long as they provide the matching funds. This is in their social responsibility, corporate, CSR, because social CSR also includes environmental responsibility. Mhm. Yeah, fascinating. Okay, that's beautiful. And of course, both afforestation and reforestation. Yes. So if you know some CEOs, which of course we're going to be knowing many because of our summit, we shall talk them into this. And we shall tell them this is Damien's idea. Damien gave us this idea. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Damien, for your insights and the question as well. So as we are concluding this session, I would like to thank Mr. Guya once more for his enlightening presentation on the metrics involved in evaluating tree planting efforts. So this topic is incredibly important as it is as it enables us to quantify the real world benefits of our initiatives. So therefore, by understanding and measuring the impact, we can demonstrate the effectiveness of these types of projects, which will help you secure continuous support and ensure that the resources involved are being used efficiently. And it also helps us to communicate the success of such tree planting initiatives to the broader community, fostering greater transparency and trust within said community. So so thank you for the presentation, as it has equipped us with the tools that we need to better assess and enhance the positive outcomes of our tree planting effort. So as we conclude, I am going to put the attendance form within our chat. Please take 5 minutes to fill it out, as that's the amount of time you'll be given. So by 9:16, I shall be closing the forms. Thank you once more for participating in our classes and always being engageful. We shall meet again next Monday for another interesting topic.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Mr. Guya. Thank you, Damien.
Thank
Okay.
you, Dr. Macharia. So the meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
Okay, so the meeting is now adjourned. Elijah, we shall communicate on WhatsApp. I'll see if I can find assistance for you. The meeting is adjourned and I'm closing the phone. Thank you, everyone, once more.